Іван Леонтійович.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for having me here. Apparently, we were missing before the conference, and we thought we were going to have a 5-hour presentation, but I was just told that I only have 5 to 10 minutes, so I will not use my 5-hour presentation. Also, it was supposed to be in Hungarian with Russian translation, but I just learned a few minutes ago that it's going to be in English. So what I'm going to do now is, in this 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to use a short English presentation that I happen to have on me. And if you are interested or in more details, I will show some pictures from the Hungarian version if you have technical questions or so. We are a Hungarian company presenting a Hungarian invention that is a solution for the waste problem. Well, not the only solution obviously, but one of the solutions that we think is a very important one. Just before lunch I heard for a few minutes the presenter was talking about the problems and the difficulties of recycling in Ukraine. We propose another solution for this problem, which would be to convert all the waste, all the carbohydrate-based waste, to energy directly or straightforward. And that makes things very much easier. It's a more economic solution with our technology at least, and could solve a lot of problems regarding the waste management area or field. I will change the presentation to the short one from this. So basically our system is all about green energy and producing green energy from waste. I don't want to talk much about the problem because you are obviously experts of this, so you all know probably better than I do what the amount of waste that is created all over the world. Just one number that we learned not long ago, I hope it's correct, that in Ukraine, for example, only an annual 12 million tons of waste is generated by the population. And I don't know the exact number for Ukraine, but we know that in the European Union, out of these 3 billion tons that the Europeans generate, only a fraction, which is about 82 million tons of waste, is converted to energy. Even though this is the most efficient way to use the waste. I know that until now, you probably, or most of you, didn't know very efficient or economically viable technologies to do this conversion, but I try to show you in a few minutes that there is such technology, and ours might be one of these technologies. Just a few, sorry, can you hear me like this? Just a few thoughts about, I don't want to go into technical details really because of lack of time and probably this is not the right forum for this, but very important that our technology is a zero emission technology, which means there is absolutely no harmful byproducts, no smoke, no emission generated whatsoever, and it's not done by filtering or more efficient filters. It's because the actual technology, I will show you how it takes place, does not emit anything at all. The second important thing is that why we call it universal is because it can process not everything, of course, not all kinds of waste, but all kinds of hydrocarbon-based waste, which comes, from dead animal bodies to communal waste, to rubber, tires, plastic, agricultural waste, and some industrial waste as well, which I think is about probably more than 90% of the waste, and actually that waste that is causing the problem. So the only things that cannot be processed and cannot be converted into energy with our system is basically glass, metals, and stone or construction material, if there is such things in the waste. The core element of the technology is infra heat or infra burners. They are the ones that produce the conversion process of the carbohydrates into elements that are usable for energy production. And the name that we give to this system is a degradation system, which means we break up the long carbon chains that are in the plastic and rubber and other materials, also the organic materials, and we break them up, sort of crack them down to usable carbohydrates, which is primarily oil, various types of oil and fuel, and also various types of gases, primarily and finally methane, that is usable for energy production. And it's a very important thing, and I find it very interesting that the whole process that takes place in this reactor, and reactor, I know it's a scary word for ecologists or green activists, but a reactor does the exact same process that would occur in nature. Just in nature it would take, I don't know, a few hundred years, depending on the material, the plastic, maybe thousands of years. And with this reactor, we could do the same degradation process, the same natural elimination process of these long chain carbon materials, plastics, etc., within minutes or actually within an hour. And the operation, and you have to know that this is not like a new invention that was invented yesterday. Actually, the invention took place 12 years ago, and one operational factory of a former generation of this technology was working, and actually is still working, in Hungary. And the same chemical reaction, the same process takes place, so it's an operational workable technology. But what our inventor did in the last 6 years, he researched researched the technology more and invented additional parts of it. So the economic viability and the profitability of this factory right now is extremely good. Researching the world market, we haven't found anything that even comes close to it or compatible with it. And this is important from the investment side. So if somebody wants to invest or a country wants to invest, it's not a technology that cleans the environment but causes a lot of loss in the budget. But it's something that actually makes money, within a few years. Yeah, I just mentioned that this is the third generation that is now that I'm talking about now. The first and second generation was also operational technologies that actually existed and produced profit for the owners, for the project owners. We are trying to come now to Ukraine and introduce this third generation of technology and cooperate with businesses and government, with municipal and national government to establish actually probably tens or hundreds of these factories. One reactor is able to produce 14,000 tons of waste per year annually, which is about 40 tons of waste in a day. And we just learned a few hours ago from somebody here in the foyer that Kiev, the city of Kiev, produces so much waste in a day that probably about 50 or 60 of these reactors will be able to eat up the daily waste production of only Kiev, not Ukraine, but here. But this is fine. This is how this plant would look like. So this is also important maybe for you that this is a very modern technology, absolutely clean. It could even be close to residential areas, not necessarily this is the ideal thing, but I'm just saying that since there is no emission, there is no any kind of harm to the environment or pollution or any sort, this is like a really clean project. As I mentioned, the basic idea is that the waste comes in, the input is waste, and in the first conversion step, what you get is oil, various grades of oil, but it's very close to diesel oil, but other types of oil, what we call benzene, and also some other types of oil is created, and primarily methane. And these two, I mean, these are sellable products already, rather clean. Probably the oil should be sold to a refinery if the quantity is large enough. Methane could be used in many ways, you probably know it better than I do. But also we try to put together with the reactor the second conversion phase or stage, which is basically an engine that is is able to use both oil and methane and a mixture of these and create just electricity or electric energy out of it. I know I also learned it a few hours ago that in Ukraine, at this moment, the government or the state electric company doesn't repurchase the electricity, but it may change in the very near future. It was a few years ago, it was the same in Hungary, but suddenly they just changed it, and now the state even purchases on higher prices. If it's a green energy project, then they would from a power plant. I don't want to go into details because of lack of time, but this is, if you are technically interested in this thing, we can discuss it afterwards. This is how the whole technology is set up. The core of the technology, the reactor, is in unit 1, which is the light blue area, and from there you will see how the various materials are converted and eventually in the unit 2, which is the second area, over there you will see how the gas and the oil is stored and could be used later. I mentioned all this. Just about electricity production, because I mentioned that we think that our technology is rather efficient, and we already talked to people here in the last 2 days since we are here, and also we researched the market. You will see that an ideal size of plant would be 4 reactors that would be using about 56 tons of waste annually. That would produce between 12 to 18 megawatts per hour electricity. Depending on the type of waste, obviously communal waste has a little bit lower electricity, energy content. Tires, for example, oil or oily rags, just to give an example, would have a much higher energy content. So obviously the reactor can produce a much higher amount of electricity from these. One reactor, or actually a plant with 4 reactors, could be built in less than a year, or in about a year, and you see the production. The operation is continuous, it's 24 hours per day, and 350 days annually. Only a short maintenance period is needed every year, about 2 weeks long. Otherwise it's continuous operation, and with very little manpower. Basically, a 4-reactor block could be operated with 42 people, 45 people, maximum, including security, managers, and everybody else. With all these factors included, the ROI, the return of the investment for a private investor or even for a government, would be about 5 to 6 years, or even less, depending on the local advantages or disadvantages of the environment. And there is just to mention, there is one additional opportunity in this project. Besides electricity, almost the same amount of heat energy or heat is created by the reactor that is reusable or usable, and it's worth to use because the actual value of this heat energy is almost comparable to the sellable electric energy. So we suggest also that if a project owner goes ahead with the full program, then beside the reactor, he or she would also establish a greenhouse. And one reactor would be able to supply heat power for 2 hectares of greenhouse for 12 months continuous production of various vegetables, primarily like garden vegetables, tomato, cucumber, etc. And that would increase the actual revenue of the whole project extremely, putting the ROI down from 6 years to anywhere between 4 or even under 4 years. And also it's a nice thing, if you talk about protecting the environment, besides using all the waste of a city, producing green energy, and also at the same time producing maybe green food for the same city or for the same area of people. I don't want to go into details. If you have any questions, please, if I have more time, I don't know, you can ask me now, or if I don't have time, you can ask me later. in English, or we have also a Russian translator that can help us to communicate. Please, if you have, yes?
Yeah. Thank you very much for a very interesting.
Thank you very much for a very interesting report. I'd like to know what kind of materials do you obtain after the processing? I mean, oil, electricity, and what else?
India.
Thank you.
Yes. There is two conversion phases. In the first conversion phase, we produce oil and methane. And also, that I didn't mention, also it's important factors, there is CO2 and nitrogen usually, if it's communal waste that we are talking about, because the nitrogen content is high in those kind of organic materials. But this is not a CO2 emission, but all these gases could be just channeled into tanks, basically, and sold as actual products on the CO2 gas and nitrogen gas. Or alternatively, these gases could be used in the greenhouse project, and because CO2 would make it possible to also nitrogen to have like a 24-hour per day production in the greenhouse, because the plants would use these gases, but they also sellable for industrial use. And in the second conversion stage, you can use the oil and the methane with a dual engine, for example, that is, or even could be a turbine, but nowadays these dual engines are more efficient. So the picture that I show here is a dual-use engine that could either use methane or oil or the mixture of the two, up to 90% on each side, on each stream, and they can generate electricity that is sellable or resellable to the grid, the main grid. We call it, the energy system of the country.
Thank you. Still not clear. What are you doing with inorganic materials?
Inorganic?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean. The process is so efficient that mennyiből marad 250 kg? 10 tonnából? 40 tonnából?
40 tonnából 250.
Yeah, okay. So let's say one day's input is 40 tons of organic materials. And out of this, only about 250 kilograms of ash is the remaining thing that cannot be used anywhere else. And this is also not a harmful material, this ash, but it's full of metals and other things that could be used in agriculture. So there is no such inorganic element other than this. Anybody else?
У мене є пропозиція, оскільки доповідь... Добре, давайте ще питання.
У мене дуже коротеньке питання. Скажіть, будь ласка, наскільки такі установки можуть бути пристосовані для переробки використаної упаковки? Скажіть, будь ласка, наскільки такі ваші пристрої можуть бути використані для переробки використаної упаковки? І друге питання, де більш детальну інформацію можна знайти, якщо потрібно, на сайті куди?
My Russian and Ukrainian are very weak, but if I understood it correctly, the question was about plastic materials and wrapping materials. This is actually one of the ideal inputs of this system, because they have a high energy content. So, you can just put the plastic and all kinds of wrapping materials into the reactor, and you can produce lots of energy out of those. 99.5% of them becomes energy or sellable materials, and only this 250 kilograms that we talked about per day is going to be ash. That is either, you can use it for road fuel if you think that agriculturally it's dangerous, but it's not actually. We have exact figures what the content of this material is, but yeah, so that is the ideal input for the system. Yes.
Дякуємо за доповідь.
Last question. One.
Одне питання.
Yeah, go ahead.
My question would be, where do you get the input material? From municipal solid waste?
Yes.
Separate collection or?
Exactly, like landfill, for example, an old landfill can feed this reactor for years, most likely. Also, as I told you, for example, the waste production of just this city here would take about, I don't know, anywhere between 60 to 90 reactors of continuous operation, in the next 200 years or so. If they don't increase their production, if they recycle, but still. Cities produce extreme amount of waste, but you probably know it, so yeah. Alright, thank you very much. I don't want to take the time for the next presenter. If you have more questions, please look for us. Here are my business partners and me. Thank you very much.